This is going to be really fast to the bottom ones because, again,
yes.
I also don't know the Korean challenger scene very well because, okay, well, first off, like I'm covering all of the leagues, so watching Korean challenger isn't really necessarily in my interest. Obviously, people like Chronicler, who are streaming a lot of the Korean challenger games last year, are significantly better experts on this stuff. So I would go listen to their opinions on some of these teams that are going to be at the bottom. And also, if you guys are curious, they are in fact streaming. So the LCK casters, so Chronicler, Wolf, Atlas, and Brendan Valdez, they are going to be streaming a couple days of Challenger Korea every week now. So you guys can watch the Challenger Korea games with good commentary, which wasn't really possible before. So they are doing an official stream of some of the games. So
here's how the LCK breaks down for me, Monty. There's the top 5, which are really interesting.
Yeah.
I've always found, and then the bottom 5, who gives a shit? And we'll get into them now. Should we just go through them quick?
Yeah. We're gonna get through the bottom 5 pretty quick. So at 10th, look, I have Nongshim Red Force. Last year was a disaster for them. They should have been a lot better with the roster that they had. They ended up just having, like, I guess, unsolvable internal issues and were just complete shit.
That was bizarre how bad that team was for the players on paper. It should have been way better. Yeah. Basically, by the way, spoiler, I had Brion 10th, but I had Nongshim 9th, so I don't think it matters on this one, right?
I think I have Brion at 8th because they at least have some more veteran players on the roster. Okay. Like, yes, they have some like meme players like Lord Morgan, but it's hard for me to say. It's hard for me to say that these rosters that are consisting mostly of new players that have been in development on Nongshim Red Force in their like challengers team are going to be the ones who are super good. Right.
Also, I will say, right, I don't, it is one of the only times ever that when I say I have freaks at number 8, I don't even really know why. They're just at number 8, Monty. That's why I don't know half of these players. They're just at number 8. Okay.
No, I have them at 9th place. I mean, look, a lot of what's happening right now is that these LCK teams are going to debut many of the players that were in their challenger teams at the bottom end because it didn't work for Nongshim Red Force to pay a bunch of money to veteran players. They were developing talent. Now by summer, some of these teams might be quite good because Korean. Yes. Somebody's going to find some gems in here. They always do in Korea. Some of these players are going to turn out to be really good.
That was why I forgot. That's the one reason I have them 8th, Monty, because they have CV Max. And if anyone can get a fucking gem, if anyone can get blood out of a stone, it's CV Max. That guy's a miracle worker, mate.
I agree. We'll put him at 8th over Brion then, who lost their Fredit sponsorship apparently.
But yeah, as I say, you can see which mega scoff teams had to be at the bottom. Like, we don't know any of these fucking guys.
CVX is a great talent scout.
It's mega.
He's a great talent scout, but he also has doo-doo on his team. So
here's what's insane though, Monty. This is a real stat if you think about it. Imagine all the great players CV Max has worked with. and then the one who wins worlds is pure shit. So sick. If you don't know guys like Viper, fucking Chovy, Tarzan, Death Touch, he's had all the greatest of all time. And pure shit's the world's winner. Why?
I'm secretly hoping that this Fiesta guy, who's the new mid laner for Nongshim Red Force, turns out to be a banger just because his name is Fiesta. We can do so many fun things with that.
Right, at number 7, I have Sandbox. What about you?
I have Sandbox as well.
Yes.
Birdall's okay.
There's some solid names here. There's some people we know that are decent.
Yeah, Closer is sticking around on this roster. There was a lot of debate last year whether Closer or Vikla was the better player. I think it was Vikla. A lot of other people think it was Closer. He's a solid player. He's a really solid player. He should be the core of this team. Sucks for them that they ended up losing Kroko, who I think is probably going to have a breakout year this year. He was on the cusp of being really good, but they kept Kyle, who's another really good player in the support role. So this team should be fine. I think there's a pretty big difference between Sandbox and the bottom 3 teams in this league, at least initially, as rookie players start to get acclimated. They kept 2 important pieces, and they should be halfway decent.
Yeah, there's not that much to say, like you said, basically. They've got a couple of good names, and then, as I said, spoiler, remember, I have them in 7th. There's only one team left, and then we get to the real teams, because I'm assuming number 6 is DRX. Am I right?
Yes.
Same for me. Basically, it's a similar story. I know these players. There are some good players here. Not many that are top players. Hence why I've got them number 6. Like, there's just some solid players here. Like Croco's not a terrible player if he's in the right meta. Fate's all right. Doc Dam was okay. Rascal's actually usually slightly above average player. Like, I think it's not a bad roster of players. There's just nothing super inspired about it. You know, it's not bad.
I think they should have kept Song as their coach. I think that would have been, replacing their coaching staff makes it difficult. The only player they ended up retaining from their championship run, because all of the players were crazily enough free agents at the end of last year, was Beryl. But Beryl's probably the most important player.
Should be his team now, surely. Yeah.
Kept rebuilding. I mean, Beryl has made 3 consecutive world finals, for what it's worth. Like, you can't discount that. His leadership and his ability to understand the macro game and shot calling is obviously super good. So he can actually, I think this team gets better as the year goes on. Dokdam, really solid player, again, in the right meta. Obviously,
nothing wrong with him. He's all right. Yeah. By the way, he's one of those players I think got unfairly abused, because the problem was people were hoping he would step up to the standard that Damwon wins everything in the whole world. Like, if you take out the expectations of a team with Canyon and Showmaker, Dokdam was all right. There's no problem with him. He's just a serviceable player.
Yeah. I mean, he's solid. He's really reliable. Croco, I think this is the year of Croco. Croco last year, what I love about him as a player is he's a complete psychopath.
Gem
and
for sure.
He will do the dumbest shit, and sometimes it will work and sometimes it won't. But the thing about a player like that is that they learn their limits by doing this kind of wild nonsense. And so I think Croco is going to come into this year with a lot more experience. And the thing is if you can de-risk some of Croco, he's going to be a crazy fun, aggressive jungler to watch. He will lose. He did lose games for the Sandbox last year, like straight up, like completely ran it down. But I think I'd rather have that than somebody who's too cautious. And his style is so fun that I think this is a year where he does very well.
The problem I have with this lineup, dude, is this. Because they've won Worlds, fans are going to be like, who will they re-up with? They were never going to have a team that was vaguely as good. Like, if you actually know who DRX the org is right now, this is not a bad roster of players. They've done a decent job in the offseason.
Yeah. And Rascal, I think people are going to wonder why he didn't stay on KT, because there were times this last split where he looked like the best top laner in the league.
Yep.
And the thing about Rascal is, as I understand it, is that he's a very difficult player to work with, and that he's very selfish. Like, he's a KDA player. And so a lot of teams, don't like, the reason why he's bounced around so much is that teams have struggled to integrate him in a way where he will play with the team's best interests in mind, and that he really over prioritizes his laning phase at the detriment to his team as a whole and the macro game. So while he's really good, I do wonder if a strong voice like Beryl will be able to rein him in with the rest of the team, because his upside is enormous. And if he can unlock the next level of his play as a better team player, I think that DRX can be very good. Fate is not great, obviously.
He's whatever, yeah. He's whatever.
So that's why they're lower now. I think this team with the new coaching staff, a bunch of new players, will take time to adjust, but they should be a team that starts low, ends high as the year goes on.
Right. So at number 5, I have Gen G. Who do you have?
Yep. Me too.
Gen G, same one. Right. The logic on this one goes like this. Unfortunately, right, the joke is, I said fans are going to look at DRX and be like, what the hell? Like, we just won World. No, Gen G's the roster. You look at that and say that, because Gen G was the team that was supposed to win Worlds and create like a potential dynasty. And now they've just fucking downgraded all over the place. So like on their team, okay, they kept Chovy and Peanut, right? On paper, you need those 2 players. But the problem is, after Worlds, I've got a fucking peanut allergy now, haven't I? I've developed one after enough years.
He was bad at Worlds.
Exactly. He just had a bad playoffs, is unfortunately the case. Yeah, he just didn't look good. So, like, Chovy's the shit, but spoiler, this was the one team where they actually activated Chovy with all the downsides taken away, and even that didn't work out. So when I look at this team, like, I don't know enough about the bot lane. Doran's just all right. Mate, this just looks like I'm back in HLE DRX territory where it's just a Chovy show. Like, why? There's no reason this team should be a top team. Like, that's why I've got a number 5, mate. Like, it's just a Chovy show again. What the fuck? Well,
the problem with Chovy is that in the World's playoffs, he basically just became Chovy from 2 years ago again, and he had remarkable he had remarkable progress this year as a team player, and I think a lot of that was Peanut's shot calling and macro play. But Gen G would just look like a shadow of themselves during their really tragic Worlds run this year. And
you can't lose Ruler. Come on, guys! Like that was arguably the best ADC in the whole world. You can't lose that player.
Ruler is like a top 2 player at his position worldwide. Like you could argue last year, was it Viper or was it Ruler who's better? But those are pretty unanimously the top 2. And they replaced him with, a player from their academy team, which is Pays, and they grabbed Delight from Fredit Briand because they lose Lehens, who probably, I don't know, doesn't want to play with a rookie player, or they don't have the money to pay Lehens. And so here we are. They have a less experienced bot lane than they used to have, and certainly a less accomplished bot lane than they used to have. And does that mean that Doran's going to have to carry more? I think that probably makes Gen G fans really uncomfortable. Now, is Pays going to be some sort of sensation? Maybe, but it's going to take time to do that. So in spring, I think Gen G struggles. And if Pays becomes good, then maybe we talk about them being a title contender in summer.
Yes. Especially because the biggest problem with this team for me is this. I do like Chovy. Like, look, I like players who farm in League of Legends. It's not really a secret. I haven't really fucking kept that one under a bushel, have I? Like, I think people know. But you have to also then be able to do something with the farm. Like, my problem with Chovy was always like the joke is, like, he does play like he thinks he's in solo queue, and it's like all great Midlanders. Like, well, I'm up in CS. Like, my team wasn't good enough for me to win the game. Like, this is your pro team, homie. All that counts the team result. Like, they don't care how many CS you've got. So, sadly, I'm really scared they're going to regress back. It's just going to be Chovy having amazing CS numbers, but then the team, like I say, it's just like an irrelevant team to win the championship. Because there's no reason on paper this team can win LCK. Come on.
Yeah, they're good enough to be mid-table in spring, but it's going to take a lot of work on their bot lane, or Doran taking a massive, light year leap forward in his own play to become a reliable carry top laner in order for them to win.
But this is where I actually think there's a real chance we might be aligned. Is number 4 Hanwha Life Esports?
No, it's KT.
Oh, I have them in the other order. I have KT third. Why do you have KT?
So why I don't have KT higher with this roster that on paper
BDD? Just bias.
I do hate BDD. I do.
There we go. That is on brand at least. You're on brand on that regard. Right?
Okay. I have a historic BDD hater, but also because as good as Keen can be, he was one of the worst top laners in LCK last split. He was really bad. And I attribute that to lack of motivation on his part because his team was really trash. But he's like in a Hans Sama situation where it's like, well, we know this guy can be really good, but he has to prove it again, which means that I just don't have the same level of confidence. Now, I wish KT had kept Vikla. BDD has been a solid player throughout his entire career. He's had certain really high upsides, like he did at Worlds 2 years ago, where he had just an amazing performance when he was on Gen G, really overperformed. It's just solid all around. Like, Cuz was fine on KT. Aiming was super good on KT last year. Now that Ruler's not even in this league any longer, he might be the best AD carry. I mean, Viper's here now, I guess, but there's a question whether Aiming can be the best AD carry within the league.
Yep.
He's like top 3 at worst. Yes. Right? He's top 3 at worst. But KT, I think Keen potentially has an opportunity to be more of a team player than Rajcula does. This is a KT team that was a top 4 team by summer last year. Doesn't look like they've significantly downgraded at any of their positions. You lose Vikla, you replace him with BDD. You lose Rajcula, you replace him with Keen. You get Lehens instead of Life. So, yeah, seems like it's a pretty well-constructed, solid roster. They kept their most important player, which was Aiming.
I'll do it this way around then. I'll address this one first, even though I had KT third instead of fourth. Basically, I'm with you. The reason why I actually think this roster works awesome is because it doesn't rely on Key being amazing. Like, if Keen's just average or whatever, BDD and Aiming should still be among the better players at their positions. BDD, historically, at least above average. Aiming, like you say, is a stud. This guy, if people don't know, had other reasons and he zigged when he should have zagged about 4 or 5 times in the past in his career. This guy could have come along years earlier and been a really good player. He was playing years back in Freaks and all those teams. So I think he's actually a mad stud. If you watch his game, eye chest techs out. So I think the thing with this team is the names on paper, it's more potential. Like, Cos can be up and down, but he can also be very good at times. He's had splits where he's been one of the top junglers. As you say, if if Keen ever does work out, I think the team will be really good. That's when they really can cook with gas and contend for the title, as if Keen actually is a good top lane. And Lehens, even though in some ways, I think when he's at his peak, he gets overrated, he is clearly a very solid support player who has been at the top of the game, understandably, throughout all sorts of metas and in many different teams now. So I think it's just a very well put together roster of players. I have him third because I'm looking at like if it all comes together. But I had Hanwha as my fourth, so I'll do that one. Then you can give your thoughts on that. Basically, Hanwha, if you look at it, is they got Kingen and Zeka from DRX. Spoiler, I think Kingen will never in his life taste whatever fucking, like the joke is, like, I won't even do the he sold his soul. I'll give you the anime reference. Like, he had to like get the Mega Uber Sharingan or whatever the fuck those, like, you know what, in like Death Note where you can sell your eyes and you get like,
you get Naruto?
No, in Death Note, they have a thing where you give half of your lifespan up and you get like those eyes that let you like see like what other people's level is or some shit. The joke is he did that the entire way and mortgaged himself completely out because there's no way this guy's ever going to a World's Finals, Winners. It's not going to happen. So, I'm not a massive fan of Kingen, but fair play. Somehow he made it work at Worlds. Clid used to be a stud, was definitely a monster back in the day. Obviously, he's had a few dodgy years now. Still an all right player. Definitely not terrible, but I'm not super hyped. It's not that great. Zeka, I think, is going to just come back down to earth, but I think he'll maybe come between the two positions, is my guess. I don't think he'll be Zeka from Worlds. That's unrealistic. I doubt he'll just be the like whatever player that was a bit of a meme before. I think now he'll probably just be like a good mid laner. If I had to guess, like fourth best mid laner or something, he'd probably just be a good player. But the thing is, I don't think he's not like Chova. You can't like hard carry the whole game or something. So, in my opinion, Viper is the massive upside. Obviously, it's awesome to get a player like him back in Korea. Could be the best player, like you say. Maybe he'll be the best ADC in the world, in which case this team maybe jumps up a spot. Life is just like, I've always thought he was just all right as a support. He's never been bad. He's never been that great. I think he's been in some overrated duos. So I think the thing with this team is, I think the floor's quite good. I just don't think the ceiling's as crazy as some people probably will think because of the DRX factor and, oh my God, Viper back. Like, I think they're just a fourth team for me. They're good. There we go.
I mean, Zeka he's going to be a better player this year than he was last year in LCK. The glow up during Worlds was real, and yes, it was a meta that favored him, and he absolutely can hard carry on champions like Sylas and Akali. But the problem is that his control mage play was like mediocre to bad. But even his control mage play as Worlds went on got better. So I think he really did. He's still young, and I think he really did have a permanent glow up. He won't hit the same peak as he did at World. I mean, if he does, that will be phenomenal.
I swear, the idea he's going to like outlane fucking Chovy is like, that ain't going to happen. Come on, you've just got to know the game. That's not going to happen. Come on,
showmakers in this league too. Like Faker still knows Slouch. PDD's good. I mean, it's a good league for mid laners.
Yes,
and
it's very.
There
good.
was a meta that was very favorable to Zeka, but he also got better at things that he historically wasn't as good on. Champions like Azir. His start of Worlds, he was pretty bad on Azir, and he ended up being all right by the time the World Finals rolled around. So I think that this team is in a good world could compete for a title. I have them at third. Viper coming back, as you know, can't be understated. Clid coming back is solid for them as well. This is a solid roster. It's a solid roster, but a lot of it's going to depend on, in my mind, Clid and Zeka's performances and what level they can maintain.
As a general rule, to me, the demarcation line in LCK is at the fourth position at this team. I think the top four is pretty strong. But here's the question, Monty. In the other regions, we disagreed on 1 and 2. So for LCK, is your number one D+?
It is.
Then we finally agree for once, because I have T1 number 2 and D+ number 1. Yeah. Right, let's just do the T1 one first thing so we can go to the T1. Right, obviously T1 just kept the same lineup. Now, the problem with that is this. Nothing wrong with that. In theory, they almost won Worlds, right? They were one game away. They actually played awesome at Worlds. I think in theory, great year generally. Yeah, summer it was a little bit dodgy. You had your times when Gumayush had his problems. My problem is this. I think this is an example of where you didn't change anything, but you probably should have. Like, I actually think they needed to change that one player. Like, if they could have gotten themselves, like, dude, imagine they were the team that signed Prince. Ooh, now I'd be like, I mean, obviously wouldn't work with their team setup, but you know what I mean? Like, if they'd signed one more big, if they'd had Viper, who the fuck wouldn't be excited about that? So my problem with the T1 is, I don't hate on them. They could end up being the best team. It's just that they're a known quantity. I know what this team can do. And it's a very good team, But I also do think, spoiler, if they'd have won Worlds, when we did that list we just did with Dom, they wouldn't have been high on the list, guys. Like, I don't think they would have been like top 6 or something like. They would have just been like 10th or 9th or something, you know. So I promise I just don't think it's fundamentally like one of the best teams of all time. It's just a very good team.
I will say, thank God Deft went to Damwon, which is now called D+, which is one of the worst brandings I have ever seen.
It's insane,
like,
isn't it?
What the fuck, dude? Like, they even got rid of their color scheme, which was so cool. Like, I liked the teal and the black and the silver. Right. And that now they just like are gray and black. It's like, it's horrific. Like, it is truly mind-boggling that they would do this. But anyway, thank God Deft went to D+, because now we get the continuation of the Deft versus Faker storyline, hopefully for the top 2 positions. Like, this is the gift that keeps on giving, because if Deft had if DRX had ran it back, there's no way this team is as competitive in a different meta. Like, we are happy DRX exploded, and it couldn't have gone better with Deft replacing Dokdam.
Yeah, the joke is, this is like a rare example of where DRX staying as a team would have just been one. Like, the joke is we would have had them ranked now, Monty, like 5th in this list or something stupid. Like, they wouldn't even be a contender, whereas actually them breaking up has made some other teams better. It's actually made LCK better.
It made the anime storyline so much better too, because the 2 best outcomes for Deft leaving DRX was either that he joins T1 and T1 wins Worlds with the high school buddies who were just rivals in the last tournament, now teaming up to get, that is like the ultimate anime storyline. But it's even better in some ways, where Deft wins and then he goes to the other super team to try and like continue to smash Faker as the years roll on. Like, this is pretty sick.
Also, am I missing something, Monty? To me, this is where you don't let the names get ahead of you. Like, Deft is not at the point in his career where he's going to get the Uzi Eye Prince treatment. The whole reason why this move is a banger, in my opinion, is because if you look where Deft is at in his career now, Monty, why not just let him sometimes be the weak side ADC? He's going to be fucking amazing at it. He's done a whole career when he needs to of being that ADC. And it's just the role. I've always thought ADC the role, because of when it comes online, you already you're sort of weak side half the game anyway. So like, the joke is, I think it's going to be a great signing. I actually think after the last year of, like, you know what it was like last year for Damwon? The only angle was weird angles, like they might do a crazy pick or maybe Canyon goes. Now they can just legitimately be a like world's contender again. This looks like a really good team.
Yeah. And Deft is really versatile because of his history as well. So I think he offers a lot more depth in terms of his champion pool than Dokdam did. And obviously the Kana swap for Noguri is a good one. I like this move.
Yeah,
Noguri
looked a bit washed, mate. He looked like something went wrong.
He was totally washed.
If people don't know, when he came back to LCK, he never did come back the same player. They broke him in China, mate.
Yeah, Kana though is, I think, a more up and coming player, and he just had a bad time on Nongshim, right? But T1, he was their choice over Zeus.
Very solid player on T1.
Yeah, super solid. And the thing is, do they need like a world beater top laner? No, they need a Swiss Army knife top laner, because this team at the end of the day is about Canyon.
The joke is this team is just an LEC team, mate. It's just jungle mid. As long as jungle mid can do their shit, you can win the game. There you go.
Well, even Showmaker is basically a support for Canyon a lot of the time.
True.
And we might say, okay, well, the jungle meta right now is a lot of like tanks and boring shit. So the meta may not be very good for D+, but if you switch up and you see some more carry junglers again, this could be a very dominant team. But the floor for this team is just unearthly high. Like, this team can't be bad, basically. The floor of all these individual players is great. The floor of the team as a whole is great. You know how they're going to play. They have a clear identity that they've built up that Deft and Kana, I think, are going to very easily slot into. Now for T1, they're running it back. And I think it makes sense. But what's depressing about T1 is that Worlds happened basically the opposite of what you thought. And if you were to say, what is going to happen to T1 at Worlds? You would have said, well, Gumayushi is going to be kind of shaky and Zeus is going to hard carry. Zeus is coming off a performance in the finals where he let Kingan be the MVP of the Worlds.
But he's done this twice now, because remember, MSI, he also blew it against the bin guy. Like, he's actually had 2 really bad international finals.
Yeah, and like that, you cannot allow fucking Kingan to be the world's MVP if you are Zeus. If your team is playing around you, if you are the star, if you're putting in all these fucking insane performances at a domestic level or in lower stakes competition, that is illegal. And for me, that was the biggest problem that T1 had, was that Zeus didn't show up with a lot of his star potential. in that final. So I think hopefully they can reset. But for me, it's not about T1's skill. It's about their consistency and their ability to rein in their emotions within critical matches. Now, I'm hoping, because I love Gumayusi as a personality and as a player, I'm hoping the new level of Gumayusi that we see is, good. And the meta is trending in his direction. The Varus, the Caitlyn, these are all great Gumayusi champions. Now, when he was at his worst was in like the Yuumi Sivir meta, and Yumi's kind of back right now. But I don't think, I think as the item changes that have been teased on future patches come in, that's actually very good for Gumayusi. Faker is obviously still good. And the weapon that they have that's most important is Keria is the best support in LCK, and it's not close. Like, you could say, well, Barrel's mechanics are nowhere near as good as Keria's are. And like, Beryl has intangible qualities. Exactly. Like, it's Beryl's intangibles that make him good. But Keria is also a very good support player.
Keria's a stud all around, yeah.
Yeah. So
there's a reason people thought he was like a contender for best player in the world. Not support player in the world. Justifiably.
Yeah. So T1, whatever problems they're having, they're not individual player problems, right? They are choking problems in the most high pressure matches, and there are a lack of Zeus showing up. But this is Zeus's year, man. Like, remember that last year was basically his rookie year. Yes, he played some in the previous year, but he got dumped like a little bit of the way into the spring split. Kana replaced him, and then he never saw gameplay again. So last year was the first time he had actually played a full split within the LCK. And in that year, he made 2 international finals as what was effectively a rookie player. And that's very impressive. But now's the time to get over those jitters and have those performances at the top level. This is a team that absolutely, on paper, can still contend for a world title. There aren't serious flaws within this roster. So, yeah, they should be good.
I actually think, though, the key thing for me is top 4 is good in LCK, but particularly top 2 is very, very good. I'm with you on the D+1. Like, the floor is mental for that team. Like, I think worst case scenario, they'd be the 3rd best team. That's the absolute worst possible. Like, I can't conceive a world where this team doesn't go to Worlds and have a chance to win Worlds even,
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a really exciting storyline, and we've been waiting for, it was disappointing, frankly, to see the performance of Damwon last year, because on paper, they should have been better than they ended up being.
And by the way, last year, the one thing last year as a positive did show me is, mate, Showmaker is everything we all said he was and more. Like, that guy really is a stud. Like, even when they had the year with the lesser roster, he was still a fucking monster. He's a very, very good player. Like, I can't wait to see this new roster with him.
And hot take, I liked their coaches last year. I think their coaches were extremely intelligent, but the players couldn't translate their savviness into the game. That is still a coaching problem. If you are being too clever in a way that your players can't execute, it's still an issue, right? They have Acorn and Gorilla. Gorilla's coming back. He's going to be one of the coaches on this team right now. They're veteran players. Gorilla has been, in his time, an excellent shot caller, and that's what this team needed, was better comms in games. I don't know if Deft and Kana are going to be the guys to like fix the comms, but maybe the coaches can help with that and try and translate skills that we know that like Gorilla has into this team, because it wasn't an issue of talent. It was an issue of fucking bungling their strategies that really cost them last year.
Yes.
And also they nearly made world semis even by being kind of bad. So I would argue they're a better roster now. So theoretically,
here's the saddest thing of all. I'm not even exaggerating. Now that we know what happens, dude, I wish it was Damwon that won that game 5 against Gen G, because Damwon could have won Worlds. I'm not exaggerating. Did they play DRX and T1? Like, the joke is, like, even though it's the only way they could have won Worlds, if they only had to play the other Korean teams, they could have won, guys. As stupid as that sounds.
That I think is definitely a possibility. We'll never know. Fucking no losers bracket, and there never will be a losers bracket, apparently. But we all wanted it after that Gen G Damwon series.
Well, the cool thing is, though, I'll tie this into the episode that we did about the formats. Remember, because this year MSI is top 2 from each region, Dude, that's going to be awesome. Imagine D plus and T1 going for like LCK with a fucking double elim bracket. Mate, I can't wait for that. MSI is really going to be fucking hype, mate. It's going to be the shit.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. As much as disappointing as the Worlds format is, because it is a very, I would say, in total, it is a minor upgrade.
Yes.
But MSI is a massive upgrade and will be, I love the format, love what Riot's doing with it. I think that was very smart of them to turn it into a better tournament. So that'll be fun, especially if we get both like D plus and T1 there.
That is still one of the worst names. I agree, D plus. Dude, it sounds like some sort of like new like fucking condom rebrand that Durex would do or something like D plus. Like what? What even is that? You know what I mean? Like it's just nothing, is it? It's fucking nothing. What? Korea has the weirdest names of all time, though, doesn't it? I know. Because here's one thing I don't get. I also don't get why people just actually put their company brand, but only that. Like Hanwha Life is mad. Like that's just an insurance company. Like what? Like pick a cool esports name or something. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's how Korea has always been, though, with professional sports. It's just the name of the.
It's not very creative, though, is it? I don't know.
It's good marketing.
D plus has to be the worst ever, though. Not least because they also did that thing which I hate, Monty, which is you go out of your way to change it. So it went from like Dam1 to like, please don't write just Dam1. It's DWG to like, nah, give it, and then it's just D plus. Like, give me a break. Every year changes, does it? Every year. Come on.
I can't believe how bad it is. D plus was probably the grades that most of their players were getting in school, because otherwise their parents wouldn't have ever allowed them to be professional gamers.
I mean, the joke is like D plus is what like Reginald aspired to get. But you know, he was working with the special tutor, wasn't he? I'm just saying. Pretty sure it's true.
Yeah. I think Dom1 was a bad brand in the first place. And the thing is, we went from a bad brand to an even worse brand somehow. I just call yourselves Kia at that point, right? Just call yourselves Kia.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.